Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor back in his kitchen where he used to record all of his videos before his den took over. I'm going to be reviewing the album Imperfect Storm by Wale, and I am going to say right off the bat, I'm probably going to title the video and include on the thumbnail the following sentence: the lyric of the year. I believe this album contains a rather unassuming lyric that is not the lyric of the year because it is perfect or in terms of its meter or its poetic resonance. It's just the lyric that sums up in the most visceral and accurate and true way possible the moment that we are living in now. Before I even get to that, let me give you some more setup. You see, as I've talked about on this channel a fair amount, coronavirus is making a lot of interesting music. It's forcing musicians to be home, and it's forcing them to write about their life. And a lot of their life is very different. It used to be very public, and now their life is very private, and we're seeing the result of that. This is also the moment of Black Lives Matter, and of, basically for the first time, American culture taking the minds and bodies of African Americans and at least acknowledging that they should be treated equally. Now, the confusing thing about this moment is that these things are coinciding at the same time, here in June of 2020. And it's a little bit uneven though, okay? Artists have had, 3 months to prepare for coronavirus, and around 400 years to prepare for Black Lives Matter. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a surge of music. I think that music made by African Americans, and even music not made by African Americans, music made by people who believe in justice and equality, is going to experience some kind of explosion, almost like the 60s, where we're going to have people in their homes thinking about injustice and singing about injustice. So I think, and this album, this EP, is great evidence of that. The fact that these two things are going to combine and we are going to get some great art dedicated to highlighting social injustice. 2 minutes in, I'll tell you what the lyric is. And I have to be honest, I'm a very emotional guy. I've talked about that before. I read this lyric to my wife, the Dr. Mrs. Payne, last night, and it started me crying for a good 5 minutes because of its accuracy, because of the way it is able to, in almost an offhanded way, merge these two moments of quarantine and Black Lives Matter. Where do they meet? They meet at this lyric, the lyric of the year. My daughter seen the murder on cellular phone, and that was not on purpose, was ordering trolls. Skye, are you okay? You did just review Dylan, right? You reviewed the Nobel-winning lyricist, right? You reviewed Perfume Genius, right? You reviewed Run the Jewels, right? All these better lyricists. But none of them wrote a line better or more true than my daughter seen the murder on the cellular phone, and that was not on purpose, was ordering trolls. Let me tell you why this lyric is so great. He's talking about the murder of George Floyd and the fact that his daughter, we don't know how old she is, I imagine she's somewhat young, saw the murder on her phone. That's where we are in our civilization. Wasn't on purpose, she was ordering trolls. Hollywood is on fire. The entire entertainment industry is crashing and burning right now. The only thing they can do is put out their movies on demand and get you to sort of remember that trailer that you saw a year ago and go, oh, I did want to see that movie. So this little girl, Wale's daughter, is trying to order the movie Trolls World Tour. I don't know, I saw the first Trolls, it was terrible. Maybe the second Trolls is good, I don't know. But this very COVID moment of paying for a movie at home that you would have paid for at a movie theater. I talked about it before. Last week we watched Scoob, not a good movie. Why did we watch it? Because of COVID. So this offhanded mistake is what gives this line its power. She saw a murder, an actual human being having his life extinguished at the knee of another human being, while in quarantine, she was trying to watch a movie about trolls singing pop hits. This grotesque mistake has been repeated all over. My daughter saw the murder of George Floyd while scrolling through Instagram looking at pictures of cute dogs. It just popped up. I don't want my 12-year-old daughter seeing somebody have their life extinguished in front of her eyes. But this is what happens in this moment, this intersection of quarantine and Black Lives Mattering. It's an amazing intersection, and it's an amazing slice of life that is so true and absurd. How dare you rhyme something about George Floyd with that terrible movie, Trolls? But that's the moment that we're living in. So for no other reason, this album by Wale is an absolute masterpiece for explaining this moment. Because of course, my daughter sees George Floyd getting murdered and never has to fear about her father being murdered in the same way, or herself being murdered in the same way. What makes it so heartbreaking is that my daughter had to think about death in some kind of abstract way. It was much more tangible for Wale's daughter. I'm angry about that, but I'm not scared for myself. I'm scared for civilization, I'm scared for humanity, but I'm not scared for myself. It is this beautiful time where rap music has been preparing for more and more vulnerability. Vulnerability in rap music has been creeping in. We can even thank some of those SoundCloud dudes talking about how sad they are. We can thank Kanye. We can thank Jay-Z letting the mask down every once in a while. We can thank everybody, right? Travis Scott, everybody who's just starting to open up a little bit for this exact moment of I am legitimately afraid for my life and I deserve to be treated like a human being. 7 minutes in, I haven't even talked about the album properly, but there you go. The lyric of 2020, my daughter's seen a murder on the cellular phone, and that was not on purpose, was ordering trolls. God damn it. That line gets, because trolls is, okay. If I were to give a review of this album in general, it's a very conflicted album, I would say, kind of contradictory. The style is very breezy for the most part, lots of like kind of R&B singing. It's kind of a combination. It's not very hardcore, right? Like the rapping, his rapping style is very smooth. It's very kind of straightforward. There's lots of nice singing that goes on. At times, the production is very refined. At times, it's very rough. For the most part, it's very upbeat and has nice choruses that are quite catchy. The lyrics are not all as good as this. Sometimes the lyrics are a little bit rough and not quite as good, but in general, it all stays true to this theme of the feeling of this moment that we have, this crossing of quarantine and the human rights pandemic of Black Lives Matter. I mean, everything about this album is so right now. I mean, the cover is a car on fire, and the whole thing is this response to this moment. So it starts off with a track called Movin' Different, which is a good example. It sounds like it's a sample, but it's not. I think it's just a couple people singing, but it sounds like tuned down. And everything just sounds like really distorted and a little bit far away. And he's talking directly about the riots, talking about, you know, white riots lead to black deaths. They even sample some TV reporters speaking. And the theme of this is essentially saying that we don't know what to do. Like, we know we need to move, but we don't know where we need to go. We don't know what we need to do. And in the chorus, he just keeps on saying over and over again, do you, do you. And that's what he's saying. We have to do you. Reminds me, I think I saw Russell Simmons on Ellen DeGeneres trying to explain the name of his title of his book, which was Do You. And like he was trying to explain like that do you, this is before the term infiltrated our culture. Like what it means is like you have to take care of yourself. Oh, it's not a question, like do you? Anyway, it was funny. Next track is called Empty Wishing Well, and this is funny because it's got singing by Eric Bellinger, and I almost reviewed his album, but I don't like his singing that much. I find him quite frustrating. But then on this track, by the time I heard the chorus that Eric Bellinger is just belting out, by the time I heard the chorus the second time, I decided that I liked it. I actually like his kind of over-singing, and it was kind of catchy. No instrumentation in the chorus itself, which is cool. In general, though, this is sort of the least interesting track. There's no instrumentation on the chorus, but during the verse, it's kind of a trap drum beat, and for the most part, they stay away from trap sounds on here, which is quite nice. There's one of two references to Last Dance, the Bulls documentary that came out, and I'm going to mention it every time I hear it because it's popping up everywhere in hip hop. I think of it sort of like the Black Tiger King, like every rapper is watching and talking about Last Dance, and references to Scottie Pippen are everywhere in music right now. Scottie Pippen, not Jordan, Scottie Pippen. It used to be MJ, Jackson, Jordan, pick one. Now everyone's talking about Scottie Pippen. So I'm glad he's getting his day in the sun. I don't have ESPN, so I can't watch it. I did watch Tiger King. Not good. It's okay, but Tiger King is about Hillary Clinton, just so you know. It's about Clinton and Trump. That's the meaning of Lion King. So don't you ever say anything bad about Carole Baskin. Okay. Anyways, just kind of a funny thing about, again, when we look back at this moment, and rap historians will look at this and say, why was everybody talking about the 1990s Bulls in 2020, and this is why. And an interesting lyric here, too. He says, "She lives in her house, I live in my head." And this is one of those lyrics where I imagine I'll just keep this lyric in my mind just forever. Like, you live in your house, I live in my head, right? I'm going to change it because I don't know exactly who he's talking about, who the she is. But this is a great way of explaining, like, the situation of somebody who overthinks things or who's too much in their own head. Like, I don't need to worry about you. You live in your house, I live in my head. And it's a great lyric. And again, some fascinating lyrics here about that pain that I was describing, you know, that I have the outrage but not the fear of Black Lives Matter. Who close up, who's attached, who's going to answer, who's going to text, who's going outside and who's coming back. We don't know because we're both black. We matter, we matter. Just we matter. Beautiful, right? And then this is interesting because at the end of this track, it sounds like this a pill bottle opening. And I believe, at least according to Rap Genius, the website that describes lyrics, the entire track is about Xanax. It's called Blue, Yellow, Green, Pink, White. And apparently that's about these pills. So this is interesting because I don't know anything about Xanax. I don't abuse pills. But it's a great song because it's sort of talking about why he likes taking Xanax and abusing prescription drugs. But it's also really about the pain that's within him. And he's, again, allowing himself to be vulnerable and make it clear that perhaps his dependency is sad and hurting him more than it's helping him. I'm going to read you another one of these lyrics that's really quite nice. It puts everything in this great context. Numb and I feel nothing, living in my bubble, quarantining with demons, I'm living with my struggle. N-words is dying on me, the president lying to me, I've got a 5 on me, I'ma turn it up. Yeah, blue, yellow, green, pink, white, never judge someone by a mother effing vice. So this is another one of these lines that's going to stick in my head. 18 minutes, and there's at least 3 lyrics that I will never forget. So way to go, Wale. He's not a lyricist. He's not like a superb lyricist in general in terms of, like, you know, line after line after line. But he's at least capable of writing these spectacular lines that stick with you. Because should we judge each other by our vices? And if we shouldn't, isn't that like an oddly compassionate line to say? You know, if you have a friend who's like a womanizer or sleeps around a lot, or if you have a friend who's an alcoholic, or if you have a friend who's a gambling addict, you know, don't judge them on their vices. That's really powerful. And then in this line as well, you know, he's talking about his pain and living in his bubble and fighting with his demons and being in quarantine. And if you have a severe habit or an addiction to any kind of drugs, quarantine has another level of difficulty. And he even talks about the pharmacy being raided. So it's interesting to hear drug usage being celebrated, but also defined in the context of coping mechanisms. It's good. This is really good. This is really good. Imperfect Storm. Even the title's interesting. I mean, I think it's a reference to Perfect Storm, right? Isn't that a Mobb Deep song? I'm pretty sure it is. But I like this idea that this cross that I'm talking about of Black Lives Matter and quarantine, it is an imperfect storm. They don't actually really feed into each other. Like, they don't have a direct relationship to each other. But it is an imperfect storm happening at the same time. And he makes it very, very day and date with the song June 5th. Now, June 5th And Queens and Gods, he says is one track. I don't know why. They're two different songs. I'm going to treat them separately. June 5th starts off, and this is the song that contains that lyric. And he's talking about, and he just says the date at the beginning. What day is it? June 5th, 2020. The day where the George Floyd murder came about, or the time when the George Floyd murder became public, and this pain that is experienced. But he even goes further. You know, he talks about in the chorus, we are the culture. You know, we are the music and the sports. We are the culture. And I think this is a really important thing to be said, because who are we kidding, right? He even says, you know, what have you brought? That's what he asks of white Americans like myself. You know, what have we brought? Well, you know, we brought Perfume Genius and Bob Dylan, you know, Tame Impala. That's pretty good. Well, I guess he's not American. But still, certainly, American culture is defined primarily through what African American culture has brought to us. And I think that needs to be said more. I think we, the culture, I forget who said it first. Could you put that in the comments if you know? I think we, the culture, should be seen as much as Black Lives Matter. Because Americans really, really don't respect how much of our culture is defined and created by African American culture. You can't even listen to country radio anymore without hearing the revolutions of culture brought about by African Americans. Seriously. It's amazing. And in here, he actually includes a quote from a protest, someone saying, "I don't give a damn that they burned down Target." And this is just such an amazing exact of this moment album. But again, it's like I said, this stuff has been being written over the past 400 years. So it's really not fair to just say, oh, this is a Black Lives Matter album. And then the next track is the same one in there, Queens and Gods. And this is sort of a love song about black womanhood. And what I think is interesting here is he very specifically says, and I don't mean people of color. And I think that's a nice, or an interesting distinction. And I don't think he's saying it to be like, I don't care about women of color. But I think what he's pointing out there is that too often, people are just kind of grouped in together. Just, okay, just people of color. Let's just worry about that. Whereas he's actually making it specific. The next track, I'm just gonna swear, Shit Don't Stop, that's what it's called. It sounds like a demo, but in a really nice way. Like it sounds like it's unfinished. It has almost like a What's Going On vibe with, you know, Marvin Gaye, you know, like it sounds like they're just recording in a studio and there's like some dudes in the back who are singing, just beautiful singing, just like wailing on in the background, and he just keeps on talking about it. And it's funny because the song's called Shit Don't Stop, but the song doesn't really start. Speaking of things that don't stop, Toby sees a car outside. Toby! Hey! Take it easy. Okay. He just sees a car drive by and he's like, I'm in danger. So it's a really great track. I love the raw feel that it has. And it's interesting because he keeps on repeating, I'm still here because somebody prayed for me. And I think there's strength in that idea. I mean, it's superstition in a way, but it also kind of calls back to Kendrick Lamar and the way he always talks about, I need somebody to pray for me. But this kind of showing gratitude and the tenuous connection, the feeling that he has to his own life, to his own safety. And then the album ends with a beautiful track, which if you've been sitting here wondering why am I in front of an album of Sunny Ade, this is the answer. Majo, M-A-A-J-O. Amazing song. Now I did, as I always do, 5 minutes of research, and it turns out that Wale, his family comes from Nigeria, somewhere around there, particularly of the Yoruba people, and in a similar way, that is where Sunny Ade comes from. So this track is based on a Sunny Ade sample of the song Majo, which I think means May, I think, like the month of May, I'm pretty sure. But it's this great song because it's a wonderful sample. And it's a really interesting sample because you don't hear much African music sampled in hip-hop. Even in the great sort of African pendant days of the 90s, you don't have that. Why is that? Because African Americans' connection to Africa is tenuous and separated by 400 years. In a way, this last track, Majo, is a French rap song. French rap is fascinating because there are so many samples from North Africa and West Africa and places where their families are from, because immigration to France, people of African descent in France, for the most part, have been there less than 50 years. Certainly less than 400 years. So their connection is much more immediate. So it's awesome, just amazing, excellent. I cannot wait to share this with my students next year when I talk about French. I'm teaching my class on French rap next semester. When I teach it, to say there are American rappers who do this, because this song that he's sampling came out in 1990. He was born in 1984. So I'm going to make a prediction that this is a song he heard growing up, that his family, because Sunny Ade is like one of the most famous singers in the entire world. Maybe you haven't heard of him. Maybe like when you were me and a kid, you thought it was a drink, Sunny Ade, cross between lemonade and Sunny D. That's legitimately what I thought Sunny Ade was. One of the biggest music stars in the world, virtually unknown in America, but still, this sample comes through, and I get the sense maybe he heard it in his house growing up, because what he says is he had to rap on something that grabs him. So it's this juju style music. Juju, which comes from a Yoruban word, not from the concept of anything having to do with voodoo, like juju. Music is a kind of Nigerian pop. So I'm very, very happy that this is on here. Musically, it's fascinating. It makes it that this 18-minute album goes all over the place. That track, Blue, Yellow, Green, Pink, White, I think might be a go-go sound. My first girlfriend was from Gaithersburg, Maryland, and it turns out Wale lived in Gaithersburg, Maryland, so maybe I walked by him at some point. And I remember back then, in the late 90s, she was trying to explain to me what go-go music was and how it was this DC thing, and it's like a party music and it's upbeat, but I couldn't understand it, and I don't really understand what it is still. And I'm not a music expert, I'm a French professor, so I don't know. Is the upbeat sounds of Blue, Yellow, Green, Pink, White, is that an example of go-go? I don't know. The additional percussion and the kind of party vibe makes me think that. But all of this put together makes a very dynamic 18 minutes of music, where you have the Sunny Ade sample, you have the upbeat dancing, you have the kind of R&B hooks. It all kind of comes together to a great album. So have a listen. You could have listened to the album 1.5 times in the time it took you to watch this video. But hey, I like to talk. Okay, so for Sunny Ade, for Toby, who stopped barking finally. You know what, actually? I am going to edit this video. I'm going to play you a little bit of Majo, just so you hear the sample, because it's awesome.
I can do it. It's my mother jump. Let me catch it. Way too fly, nigga, way too high. I'ma catch a body every 8 times. 16 killer made hits like brother.
Okay, there it is. Have a listen. It's great. All right, there's the camera.